Hi, I'm Forrest Griffin.
Brian Caraway.
And Lisa Tate.
What's up, guys? This is Joseph Benavidez, UFC flyweight.
Hi, this is Greg Jackson, and you're listening to It's MMAzing, and that is an amazing pun.
Get it? Like MMA, but amazing? Amazing.
Radio.
Welcome to It's MMAzing Radio, brought to you by Manscaped. The Weed Whacker 5.0 is the new product. Use product code Michael. With me this week is DJ Mark.
Sup?
I should probably tell people not to really use that code. We're not sponsored by Manscaped yet.
You're giving the milk away for free, Bobby. They got paid.
I don't think it's called the Weed Whacker either. I think it's called something else. Also joining me this week, Kid Presentable.
You know, that would be a good one for you guys to have a nice beard bet against each other in which both of you shave before the completion of the bet.
Honestly, mine's looking pretty good right now. We might need to come up with one. Mark's is looking pretty thick right now as well. Finally, also joining us this week, he's back, Lavender Gooms.
Check, 1, 2, 3. It's Mikey on the dispatch.
That's right, folks. It's going to be that kind of podcast this week. I'm making up sponsors, and Mike's doing fucking trucker games. All right, boys.
You see, none of y'all have watched In the Heights yet, so y'all don't get that reference. For my people out there that have seen the greatest In the Heights reference, it's from In the Heights. Okay,
I knew it was a reference. I don't know the movie. I don't know the story, but I know Mike, our boy, is giddy. He is giddy about In the Heights.
This is a synopsis of In the Heights.
That's also just what people say when they're checking.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
what we're doing right now. It's very authentic to the activity we're in. So it did go completely over my head. I was just like, Mike, we already told you to get close on the mic, and you're kissing it now, so we're good.
I'm basically making out with my mic right now.
You actually
never sound better.
Mike has never sounded this good on the mic. Exactly.
You're right next to me.
Yeah,
we're in the same room now.
All right, kids. We're gonna talk about UFC 263. Most of this podcast, at least the MMA portion, is going to be about the UFC 263. I'm starting to really appreciate that, like, despite the sheer number of cards that don't matter, one of which coming up this weekend, the pay-per-views are generally pretty fucking, like, loaded and give you a lot of stuff to talk about once it's over. So, there's that.
They've been delivering.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little PFL. We're going to talk, that's right, PFL. We're going to mention, I might as well do it now. The Bellator welterweight champion is no longer the Bellator welterweight champion. I guess there's a new one. Where Douglas Lima went down, got grappled for 5 rounds against Amasov, who's 26-0 and has 867 Twitter followers. So what's going on in Bellator, folks? We're going to talk about this Dan Ige Korean Zombie fight happening this weekend. We're going to talk about Rory McDonald beating up Gleison Tebow, who's 100% a clean fighter, despite what Stefan's going to tell you later. Let's get into it. Marcus. Izzy Adesanya, Marvin Vettori. They showed Marvin Vettori in the back at one point warming up. And I mentioned this to Mike where I said, Marvin Vettori looks like a man who's never considered the possibility that he might lose this fight. And let me tell you, my friend, that fight happened and there was no plan B when nothing was working.
He still doesn't think he lost that fight.
No, he doesn't think let me tell you, his corner did. Rafael Cordero was like, because Marvin was like, after like round 2, he's like, so at round I won, and Rafael was like, no, you lost that round. You lost that round.
You lost that one too.
Yeah,
we're losing.
We're losing these rounds. This is okay, but yeah, not a knockout or a submission, but really just a masterclass in striking from Izzy Adesanya and exploiting a weakness. Wouldn't you say?
I think it's a masterclass in his defensive capabilities because that's what I really think won his fight. His offense. In kicking range, he did really well there. He smashed Marvin's leg from the outside. And I think the offense in that regard was really good. Didn't get a lot of work done with the hands. And it was, a lot of this fight was him defensively being better than Marvin's offense. Because, Marvin did a lot of things that he kind of needed to do. He needed to put pressure. Getting Izzy up against the cage is a good call. That's a good strategy for him to do. Really what he lacked in was being able to keep Izzy down. And that's something that we saw a big improvement in Izzy from his last fight, where when Jan got him down in rounds 4 and 5, he didn't really even try to get up that much. There wasn't a lot of attempts. I think maybe mentally he was just too tired. Who knows? But in this case, Marvin was able to get him down in the first. He was able to get him down multiple times in these fights, but he was not able to hold Izzy down, and that was a big factor that played into Izzy winning this fight. Izzy's movement on the cage, both with his feet and with his head, using lateral movement, because essentially what Marvin did well, and he did some things well, and in a weird way, you can see how a delusional fighter could think he's winning these rounds when he's not, because he was the more guy pushing the action. In the sense that he was literally moving forward more often. He was taking center of the octagon. He was getting takedown attempts, and the things that he failed on was to convert those takedowns against the cage to actually get Izzy down. He spent a lot of times in clinches where he wasn't successful in getting a takedown.
You want to chime in here?
Yeah, just one thing that's what Mark said about a delusional person, thinking they won the round because, they were pushing the action. Does that kind of remind you of how Diego Sanchez, with his face looking like puppy chow, won that fight against, who was it? Martin Kampman?
Honestly, there's a few of those Diego Sanchez fights. I was thinking Diego Sanchez too for a while there. Like that type of mentality of I'm just going to outwork. I'm the one putting more work in. Really.
Right. But but Izzy, clearly in everyone's eyes, he won those rounds because, on the outside, he was doing good work. And even in the clinch in these positions where Marvin, these would be positions you would think would be as advantageous for him, when he has a double leg, has his hands clapped under the butt, he didn't want to exert that extra energy to get him down. And you can understand why after the first round where he was able to get him down fairly early in the round, had him in open space, Izzy worked his way back up to the cage. And then when he was there, he was still in full guard, which is, you can't really get up from full guard. You need to get in half guard or to get your legs free to build back up to your base. So he kind of went for an armbar kind of thing, threw his legs up, got to his back, got standing back up. So it was a lot of his defensive things that really impressed me the most, because honestly, at the end of the day, like, we've seen Izzy tune guys up, and we've seen him knock people out. And while he did good work on the leg and using his kicks, like, I don't think he really had Marvin hurt too bad anywhere in this fight, but he was winning the fight.
I thought, and I might be giving Izzy more credit than need be, I thought around round 4 or 5, Izzy was just like, I'm good. Like, I didn't think he was really like, I know we criticize guys for this too, but I don't think, maybe he didn't see as many openings as you'd like. But I think he probably could have pushed more around round 4 or 5 when Marvin's takedowns were getting exceedingly desperate, and his leg was pretty beat up. But Izzy looked like almost like he was like getting rounds in at the end. It felt like I might be giving him too much credit there, but I got the impression I'm like he could probably put this in another gear if he wanted to.
We've seen this with a lot of dominant champions, right? It's just to really go after a guy when he's not hurt, he's just kind of it's dangerous. That's something that you see prospects do. You see people that really have to build a name. When you're on the top of the mountain, there's really not a whole lot of reason to, in a 4th, 5th round, to be like, okay, I'm really going to turn up the heat and try to get this guy out. That happens when you happen to catch a guy. He makes a mistake. You're able to catch him with a clean shot, a clean kick or something, and he's hurt. And it's like, okay, now he's hurt. This is where I can end the fight. He never got any strikes off. And the closest he got, Marvin fell down to a low kick, and he tried to use some heavy punches there to put him away. But those opportunities didn't really rise. So for really Izzy, it was just like, okay, let's just ride this out. I'm dominating the fight. I'm winning all these rounds. He's not getting close on these takedowns. And that's to Izzy's credit, because in their first fight, it was the opposite. The clinch work tired Izzy out. And in the 3rd round, he didn't have a lot in him. He gave up a takedown. He wasn't able to get up as quickly. And in this fight, it was Marvin the gas tank was depleting. He was the one spending a lot of energy in the clinch, trying to go for takedowns that he wasn't getting. And Izzy was comfortable there. So it was a maturity in his defensive posture, in his defensive grappling, and his ability to get out of the clinch when his back's against the cage. Those are the things that I really saw. Like, oh, these are big, and his stamina. And last week I was dogging Izzy because on his countdown show, when they're doing their breathing exercises, he's always the first one up. But that being said, his cardio looked really good. He did not get tired in this fight. Marvin was tired. And that's maturity. We saw in his last fight with Jan, that really wasn't the case. Jan was able to take him down, and Izzy didn't have those answers. And now he has those answers. I think a factor is the 20-pound weight difference in the weight class. But
Steph, I came out of this one thinking, especially when Izzy weighed like 183 pounds at the weigh-ins. And like after the fight, I'm just like, man, I'm not sure Izzy needs to fight at 205 pounds. I get why we want to see the man challenge himself, but we really see this man at his best at 185 pounds, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, that's easy. I think you saw all the difference, right? Vettori with his takedowns and his things. What was the difference between him and Jan? Is Vettori couldn't manage it this time, right? He couldn't really get the submissions. Even when he got Izzy down into what Mark was saying, Izzy has clearly improved, right? He knew what he needed to work on, but can he get that off a guy like Jan Blachowicz, right? Who's that much bigger?
Who's 240, probably 235. Yeah.
Yeah, so. That's right. Like he went up there as a venture, as a test of skill set, right? He was undefeated, really feeling invincible, right? Him fighting Jan for the title was a heat check, and it didn't work out. So he did what you hope to see, and going, okay, I'm going to go be the king of my division, right? Absolutely. I'm not just going to turn into Conor McGregor and only hunt super fights and forget about defending my belt. He immediately went back down and is like, all right, who's the most credible contender? So, from a sporting aspect, I respect him for that. But
yeah, I mean, because especially because they were telling him like Robert Whittaker was next, and then like he wanted to get a fight, and he's like, okay, I'll fight Marvin, who was, I mean, and now that it's over, we can say he beat him 5 rounds to nothing, but that was like, Marvin took a round off of him. Like, that was, picking Marvin wasn't insane in this fight. And it was a real testament to him there. But yeah, he was coming off of humping, literally, Paulo Costa when he fought Jan Blachowicz. He's like, oh, fuck it. I'll fight this big Polish dude. No problem.
I mean, speaking of that, we got some good old ass grabbing. We got some squeezing.
There's a lot of gamesmanship.
Yeah, we haven't got one of those since Randy Couture, I don't think. That against Tito, I believe, right, Marcus?
It was a little spank. He did. I mean, you know what? I mean, Izzy's done some weird stuff, right? Because wasn't there something else? When he beat, it was the
when he literally
the
humped
back
him,
thrust, and now the buck grab.
Well, hey, by the way, now that we bring that up, Waleed.
Any team you play for, I don't care, but
isn't Waleed also Vittori's guy or not? Or am I imagining that?
No, he's Italian.
No, Waleed is Figueiredo's guy. Because I noticed Waleed was not there. And I'm like, after Waleed's comments about Izzy being a secret homosexual, might have been where Dana White's like, okay, man, we're at Disney now. We got Waleed. This is
you know what Waleed's thinking though. He's like, see, see. You know what I'm saying? You're starting to catch what I'm throwing out there.
By the way, Steph, do you appreciate Izzy hitting that UFC 2 push off the cage sweep thing off of on Vettori real quickly? 2 legs on the cage, push, Izzy on top. It's like Marvin never played the video game before.
I can't honestly. I don't recall that very specific move, but I know we're kind of finishing up this fight. I just want to chime in. I did catch some comments Marvin made today. He's come off it a little bit, right? We've given him crap for being a little bit delusional. I think he was at this point saying, he's like, oh, come on, couldn't you have given me at least 1 round? Like, he's like, was it really 50-45? It felt closer than that. But he at least acknowledged that he lost, and he's on to calling out Paulo Costa, so, he's 27 years old. He's really not going anywhere. He has a really good skill set. What you're just hoping to see from him going forward is get finishes now, right? Because he kind of got this title fight off of a grinding but dominating decision, right? And it seemed like that was his only hope, was to try to decision Izzy. He's got to kind of learn some finishing instinct now, whether it be chasing subs or actually putting people away with his hands.
Yeah, I think I messaged you this where I said his style really doesn't lend itself to coming back in a fight either. Like, you better be winning, because if you're down 3 rounds with his style, that's the end of the fight.
He's not a 10-8 guy.
Mike, he wants Robert Whittaker. He wants Robert Whittaker, and he wants Robert Whittaker in Auckland, right? Because Izzy's from New Zealand. Was it in
Auckland or Australia? Does he really care as long as in Oceania?
No, the first one was in Australia, right? If I'm not mistaken. Wasn't that in like Sydney or Melbourne? And
yeah, and now he wants it in his neighborhood, which is New Zealand.
Yeah, and it sounds like October is what he wants to do. I know this first fight wasn't close, but do you see anybody else in that weight class doing anything?
Now, forgive my ignorance, but has there even ever been a UFC event in Auckland, New Zealand?
I feel Mark Hunt was in something in Auckland, right? Why wouldn't there be? Let me ask that question. Why wouldn't they go to New Zealand?
Is it big enough? I don't know anything about the stadium. I'm guessing it's a big stadium. It's like a rugby stadium or a soccer stadium or something.
Let me ask this question. Have they booked, what's the name of his teammate? Champion. Volkanovski. Have they booked Volkanovski versus Ortega? Because if they want to
have a date,
have they done that? Because if not, that seems like a good idea. If you ask me, you put both of them.
Headline.
You put both of them. We'll talk about their teammate Brad Quake Riddell fighting. Put him on that card. Maybe you put Kai Kara France on there too. They got enough. That City Kickboxing team. They got some people. I think it makes sense. What do you think?
Paul Felder fought Dan Hooker in New Zealand on a fight night.
Yeah, I think Hooker's from there too.
Okay.
Yeah, so they've been there, and it was Auckland that they went to.
You got to appreciate.
So they do have the capabilities to actually hold an event. Then
New Zealand is not as small as you think they are, and let's give them credit. They handled COVID right, so you know what? I'm confident with them filling an arena more than I am when we do it in Florida in America.
That's fair.
More importantly, to that point, they handled Lord of the Rings pretty well.
I was gonna say, like, it's a small island, and like, what, 70% of it has to be hobbit holes and shit, right? That's what I'm hoping for if I ever go over there.
Mike, back to the original question.
Your original question after all of that meandering. That's the fight to make. I mean, just looking at the UFC rankings right now, it is a bit of a desolate wasteland when it comes to contenders for Adesanya from about
in
2
fairness,
to 5.
he beat all of these people pretty much too. Like
that's why it's pretty desolate.
Yeah, why don't you go?
Costa, Vettori, Cannonier, Brunson, Hermanson. Nothing there besides a rematch with Robert Whittaker really whets the appetite for me.
How far away are we from Uriah Hall getting a title shot? Not that he can beat Izzy. Let me be clear about that. But how many more does he need? They gave him some bullshit opponent too, right? They didn't give him like a real fight. Like they didn't give him like a big name after this, did they?
I mean, if we get to the point that Uriah Hall is getting a title shot, we have gotten to the point where we're just running guys out at Izzy like we're running out women at 125.
No. Put respect on the man who has a win with 0 strikes thrown, 0 takedown attempts, 0 submission.
Well, you know what? I was a little bummed. I'm serious here. I know I'm a bit of a Uriah Hall mark here, but like they gave him number 11 Sean Strickland next off of that Weidman fight, and I was really hoping we'd get Uriah Hall versus like Cannonier or some shit, or Brunson, or like.
I think he has a fight. I think a lot of these guys have fights lined up, like Hermanson or something. I agree with you, Bob. Like someone with a name, because Strickland is not like, hey, there's no one to scoff at. But like after a huge Weidman, like someone that went viral like that, you kind of think.
I thought one more.
Throw him one big fight, and then
now it's
knows?
Two. Now it's two. Now he has to be Strickland and one more probably. Izzy's not going anywhere. Izzy's pretty young too, isn't he? Not as young as you think, but he's relatively young, isn't he?
He's early 30s.
He is 31.
He's older than you think for how long he's been in MMA.
So he's got, I mean, Izzy's still got, 4 or 5 years of doing this thing, at least, if he wants to. But what happens when you fight a lot of people coming up, man? It's like when we got Oliveira down there as champ, where he's fought everybody in this damn weight class 3 times. You do it right, you fight a lot of contenders on the way up. But you like the Whittaker fight, Mike?
Yeah, I do.
Does he have anything for him?
Well, that's a different question. I mean, we don't know how much Robert has really, progressed since the last fight, and it was so dominant the first time around that, much like with this Vettori fight, where even though Vettori got around in the first fight, we weren't really expecting much out of Vettori. We'll be expecting more out of Whittaker because he's Robert Whittaker and he's a bad motherfucker. But I don't know.
I mean, I'm actively excited to watch this fight.
Yes,
even regardless of.
I'm more there for the spectacle of it rather than actually thinking Izzy might lose.
This is when Izzy did the dance too, when they fought, right? When Izzy had the big dance number at the beginning when he.
It was a very big, intro.
Yeah.
I'll say this for on Whittaker's behalf. With his fights in coming off of that loss, especially his last fight, if you look at what he's been doing, he's been mixing in his takedowns more, right? He's been actually using wrestling. He's been using trip takedowns, just showing that it's a part of his game. Because in that first match, he came out purely boxing him. And that's the worst thing you can do against Izzy is have a purely striking matchup. Mm-hmm. You have to have the threat of, right? Because look what it did, look what Vettori did, right? Obviously, Vettori is probably a better wrestler, Whittaker, but in just having to honor it, it takes some of the pop off of his punches, right? It takes some of the focus. Maybe he doesn't go for as insane kicks, but that first fight, Whittaker, he was on a really great run himself. So he was just lunging a lot of punches. I think we all thought Whitaker fought a little uncharacteristically himself. His hand speed seemed a little off.
He was going through some personal issues too. Not that he didn't make any excuses. He says Izzy beat me, simple as that. But he did kind of disappear for a little bit afterwards too. He was.
It just wasn't the best
game
plan. So all I'm saying is he has shown in his most recent wins a willingness to kind of add that grappling wrinkle. And that will be an important key if he's to, make this rematch more competitive.
Also, you're coming off of 10 rounds of Yoel Romero thumping you in the head. Maybe you think you can't get knocked out. Just saying. Co-main event. We have a new UFC flyweight champion. And as the week went on leading into this one, not never. It's happened before. But I very much hoped my pick was going to be wrong. Where I was telling Mark, I'm like, man, I want Moreno to win. I really want Moreno to win.
No one wanted to join Stefan in flavor country.
Honestly, huh? I thought you picked Vettori too, but I knew you picked Assassin Baby here. Brandon Moreno, someone who showed up in the UFC when they did that tough of 125-pound guys, and he was also number 16 on that show, and he looked like he was 12 years old. He still does. And it took 4 or 5 years, but now he's a champion, Steph. And that crowd was terrible. Let me say this. But it was Phoenix. There's a lot of Mexicans in Phoenix. And the way they embraced Brandon Moreno and when he won, that was really a beautiful sight, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, I felt like Moreno got the biggest pop of the night. Whatever it was, he got adopted. I think I heard someone else even call it out. It's not just like that. He kind of came out of, apparently on the tough season he was on that I don't think I really watched. He was the number 16 seed. Yep. So he was fodder on the tough season that he competed on. It's not like he was even one of the guys who was expected to be anything. He got cut from the UFC for a short period. It was a really short window, but that's also
when they were going to dump the whole weight class, I think is when they cut him. Mike, real quickly, you want to dump in?
Yeah, that tough season, that was the one that it had the gimmick where every 125er had an undefeated record. And
I thought they were all champions.
Was it champions or undefeated?
I thought they were all champions, and he was
title shot, right?
And he was champion of the Tijuana MMA brothel / club in Tijuana. I don't know, man.
Of local Tijuana gym. He was a champion of his gym that he trains in.
Yeah, I mean, this guy, it was just nice to see, honestly. The moment, Mike, we talked about it, when he, after he won and the crowd's losing their mind, he didn't really react. It took him a minute.
He reacted as if this was his 10th title defense.
It took him a minute to realize what had happened almost, it felt like. Like he was, dreaming that he was, champion.
Yeah, he definitely looked like he was in shock. He walked away, and I thought, man, this guy is really cool and collected. I mean, he just realized a life dream here, and he's just walking away like he just found $5 or some shit on the floor. But then eventually, the floodgates opened up, and you saw him start bawling, and then he gave that really emotional post-fight interview with Joe Rogan afterwards. It was really nice to see. We've lost a lot of faith in a lot of the people we root for in this sport, and it was nice to get a little glimmer of a feel good for once.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't mind me jumping back in,
go ahead,
what I wanted to say about the fight itself, because something Mark mentioned. We can pick fights right here and there from time to time, and sometimes we get it right, sometimes we get it wrong. But it's the moments where we actually call the fight right that we're actually a little bit more proud of. And I think when we were talking about this fight, I think you gave it up to Figueiredo that Figueiredo coming off of that performance, okay, he's going to know what adjustments to make. And why I was high on Brandon Moreno enough to pick him was I thought coming off of that Figueiredo fight, I learned something about him. He realizes he belongs now, right? And there's this elevated confidence, and you saw it, right? He took center of the cage immediately. He dropped him with a counter left, I think it was, in the first round. When he took, his back, he jumped it. He showed up to win. He didn't show up phase. He didn't show up as the underdog. That was a fight which, ultimately was a draw and, is a loss if there's not that point deduction. Mm-hmm. But you really love to see it where the kid is there in the deep water. He's there with the best of them. And he actually is like, oh, I in fact belong. It's kind of the opposite of Dominic Reyes, who kind of fool's golded himself into believing he belonged. and then kind of has been free falling ever since that high point against John Jones. But Moreno, I was just happy that my analysis was right, because I thought I saw something in kid, but more importantly, the kid saw something in himself, right?
Yeah.
Like in the guys who really make it, sense of self-belief is everything, right? Like when we talk about Tony Ferguson's run, we talk about the power of Conor McGregor, right? The power of Nathan Diaz, we'll talk about briefly.
I got a big soliloquy on the power of Nathan Diaz coming up. Marcus, Figueiredo's been your and my guy. We love the way he fights. He is too talented to be this sloppy with his weight cut. That was a rough look. I think I don't know if you guys saw this. I definitely mentioned it to you that Waleed was kind of keeping him upright as he walked over to the scale. Like, it was the kind of weigh-in where if we were in Las Vegas, immediately we all would have been like, okay, throw some money on Brandon Moreno. He isn't tall enough to fight at a higher weight class. He is a 125-pounder. It's I was getting almost John Lineker vibes about this. Like, come on, man, you got to do better than that. And I don't want to say he lost just because of a weight cut, but it was really emblematic, I felt, of him not recognizing that he was the champion. Like, his whole attitude going into the fight seemed like he was unnecessarily emotional and angry at times for no reason about what was happening, rather than recognizing I'm the champion. I need to go out there and adjust from the first fight and take this opponent out and stuff. I mean, what did you think about Figueiredo's overall approach and what happened?
Yeah, I mean, we've known that he struggled to make weight before, but this seemed the most egregious. This seemed like his toughest cut yet. And for the other times, it hadn't really affected his performance too much, but it definitely seemed to affect this one. And, you don't want to take any shine off Moreno, because I think Steph's right. Like, and I noticed it, and I think a lot of people noticed it. Like, he looked like the champion in that fight. Like, he had the posture, he had the aura of the guy that was defending his belt. And Figueiredo seemed like someone that was kind of following suit and was just, I mean, look, he throws big wing punches. He's an action fighter, but he just didn't seem calm. And he had the same attitude as Vettori, I thought, almost going into the fight. Like, these are the angry, aggressive guys who are fighting with emotion here. Yeah, and they were, watching the lead up to the fight too. They were saying oh, Moreno was saying all this trash talk before, and he was getting himself all hyped up. And which, I mean, for me, the fight itself was interesting, and Moreno did really well. Figueiredo definitely just didn't look like himself. But for me, it was really Moreno becoming into his own, becoming a star. Because I think the first fight put him on the map. Because, I mean, before that, he really wasn't on my radar. A lot of the 125ers weren't. It was really Figueiredo versus X, and we're going to see this guy demolish him. So to have the kind of performance he had in his last fight kind of put him okay, I need to pay attention to this guy. And it was a lot of the lead up to this fight, getting to know him a little bit more. And I think it doesn't take long for anyone to kind of gravitate, because he's just humble, respected. I mean, it's just he has a friendly, because when you talk about other superstars in the sport, they usually have a chip on their shoulder. They're usually trash talkers. Chael, Connor, Nate, they usually talk a lot of shit. And there are some guys that are just genuinely nice guys that get over, Wonderboy Thompson kind of has that, but Moreno even more. He just seen, and especially being kind of, for me, watching the countdown where he's like, I have my own office now I can put all my Funko Pops and Legos. I was just this guy's just a big kid. And he's just having fun, and that instantly made him relatable to me, and made me want to see him succeed. And then hearing he's on the Spanish broadcast, again, I think him being able to speak English well really helps, because it gets over that barrier of the language barrier, right? Charles Oliveira might be a really cool dude, but because I'm always reading subtitles, I don't really feel like I know that guy. But getting Moreno speaking the language and just being as eloquent and is just kind-hearted as he is you just want to root for the guy. You just want him to succeed and win. And that's what makes this win, and him being the kind of the first Mexican-born champion, and hopefully, and I have to imagine that country really getting around him just makes you feel good. So that's what really put me over. The performance was fantastic in and of itself, but the story for me was this guy is a star. And I think that was funny in the press conference, because he was I'm a UFC star now, and Daniel was like, you win this championship, man, you're going to be superstar. And I don't think it really dawned on him, and I don't know if it still has. It honestly, the UFC, the minute they could put on a show in Mexico, they're going to put on a show with this kid. Mm-hmm. And yes, this is the Mexican star they wanted and looked for years. Yes. And by the way, I just realized the championship he held before Tough was the World Fighting Federation Flyweight Championship, which is a local MMA organization
in Arizona, which might explain some of the crowds. I mean, I don't know how many people there went to those shit, but
one thing
so it's not a championship with Tijuana whores as you put at the beginning of this.
yeah, there isn't a fucking donkey show picture on the belt. No, okay, that's not what's going on.
What I kind of want to wrap this fight up with, and just in general, what I'm really excited about is 2-3 years ago, this division was dead. We were like, Henry just won that. He said, like, I'm gonna win this belt and I'm killing this division. I'm gonna go up and fight at 35. And it's just so, and you have to give some credit to Figueiredo, who definitely, I mean, for us hardcore fans, injected a little bit of life into it. And now you have Moreno, who's like not only just a good fighter that hopefully can hold that belt, but he is a star. And that's what this division is needed. And Figueiredo really wasn't that. He was an exciting fighter for the hardcore fans to get behind because he's dropping dudes and he has exciting fights. But this division needed a star, and it's taken a long time.
Let me tell you, my friend, what happened, we're going to talk about the next fight. Nate Diaz being on this card was big for the other people on this card in general. Not for Leon Edwards.
For sure.
Didn't go well for Leon Edwards. We'll talk about that in a moment, but I saw so much national sports media talking about Nate Diaz today. And all those people saw Brandon Moreno and Izzy Adesanya. And Izzy was already a big deal. But Brandon being sandwiched between one of the up-and-coming stars in Izzy and literally one of probably two superstars. I mean, Nate's a goddamn superstar, which is amazing. He doesn't win fights. This was really big for Brandon Moreno. And you talked about this division. Yeah, where we came from was like Mighty Mouse, who's the greatest champion UFC's ever had in terms of numbers, ran through it. They wanted him to move up. He's like, you got to pay me, right? No, they shipped him to Asia. Then Henry Cejudo knocking fools out. All right, you're going to pay me, right? No? Okay, I'm retiring. Figueiredo, fucking action fighter, puts out fight of the year with Moreno. Doesn't move the needle necessarily. Here we are, though. We got a Mexican champion. And if you can get traditionally Mexican fight sports, a lot of the champions aren't big dudes. A lot of them aren't large men. So if you can get the Mexican community behind Brandon Moreno, this would be a really big deal for the UFC. Stefan, you want to chime in?
No, it just when you said that, it made me laugh. We mentioned the big USA versus Mexico soccer matchup, and I just remember on the Reddit soccer thread for the game right after Weston McKinney got the equalizing header. All I see is a Mexico fan goes like, "Fuck, we're short."
Yo, I'm not a tall man, and I always make the joke to you about the mall near me. The Sun Valley Mall, which I feel like I'm like average height because everybody's Filipino and Mexican and goes to the mall.
Yeah, I was going to say, Bobby, I haven't been to Sun Valley Mall in like a good several years, but I knew the clientele were predominantly Asian and Latino, and I'm like, I'm a good solid height at this mall.
Yeah,
I am a good solid
step
height.
one little taller people.
A little tidbit for that mall. My wife Christine has small feet, and they have a woman's shoe store there that has extra small shoes that she can fit into. She's like, this mall's awesome. And I was like, there you go.
Tell me, man, the mall is just for people like me. It's great. All right. I last week painted a nightmare scenario for Leon Edwards winning and it not really moving the needle. And in my nightmare scenario, it was a boring 25-minute fight. This went worse for Leon Edwards, honestly. And I feel for him. It wasn't boring. Let me tell you, I feel for Leon Edwards because Leon Edwards put on a great performance. For 24 minutes, Nate Diaz had nothing for Leon. Short of maybe here or there, he was landing some stuff. But until the last minute of that fight, Leon Edwards was doing Leon Edwards things, getting takedowns, sound striking. No real interest in ending the fight, short of a cut. Which, by the way, when they tell you this fight, no one told us why this fight got moved until Nate mentioned the fight was moved because he got a cut. God damn it, man. We got to get Nate that surgery, right? We got to get him this shit cleaned up. Yeah,
I mean, what's funny is, when we were breaking down the fight last week, I mentioned on the show, I haven't seen a lot of Leon Edwards. So my take was that he was going to beat him striking. And you're like, oh no, he's going to take him down. And he did both. Like, he beat him both ways. He was able to dominate the standing, mostly with his leg kicks, but also like just really good, solid boxing, being the guy leading the dance and following it. When Nate came forward, he had counter check hooks. When he was coming forward, he landed some of the best shots of the whole night, on Nate. And Nate just eats them because he's just that tough.
He's a very good fighter, but he's not finishing people. And he's not terribly exciting for a lot of people. But then the fucking last minute of the fight happened where Nate hit him with left straight, and Leon was fucked. Like, and Nate pointed first, which he could have done. God bless you, Nate. Don't do that. And then Nate, I'm standing up, honestly, at my house, yelling. And Nate is trying to take him out. The crowd's losing their fucking minds. And Leon survives. Is getting booed, by the way. People were booing him like this was like a fucking WWE card, like there were heels and faces. It was weird. I'm reading all of today how Nate Diaz is a fucking legend. I sent this to you, Mark, about Ariel had a quote about Nate that said, let me see if I can read it. It says, it's from Ariel Helwani today on the final episode of DC and Helwani, which I'm sad, quite frankly. Good podcast. Those 60 seconds are why Nathan Diaz is the legend that he is, no matter what, no matter the circumstances, no matter the cut, the blood, all that stuff. No matter the fact that he was losing 24 minutes of that fight, he is able to win people over like that. The story of this fight is not Leon Edwards, which sucks because he's won 9 straight or unbeaten in 9.
Yeah.
Kamaru Usman, the champion, who was his last loss. Kamaru was like, yeah, he doesn't deserve it.
That was in 2015, by the way.
Yeah, that was fucked. That's fucked for Kamaru. Kamaru's fighting Jorge Masvidal. You know, that's fucked of him to say. I get it, but that's fucked. So I'm listening. I told Mark I listen to the Pat McAfee show every day when I'm working. It's a national sports talk show. Talked about how much they fucking love Nate Diaz. Rich Eisen's talking about how much he loves Nate Diaz. I really felt for Leon Edwards after this. I mean, beyond loving Nate Diaz and how cool that was to see. What did the poor guy have to do, man? Mark, what did he have to do to get the credit he deserves?
I mean, honestly, not get caught at the end and just completely demolish. But even then, I mean, would people say like, "Oh, it wasn't enough. You didn't finish"?
No, Nate but this was worse. Obviously, like
I get what you're saying. I mean, for Nate, it's just like from my perspective, it's like, well, he pulled it out of the fire because he was getting his ass kicked, and if he didn't land that, it would have been. It would have been a complete mauling for 25 minutes. So, I mean, and this is kind of what Nate and his brother have been able to do their entire careers is turn losses into victories, right? How did I lose to I don't know if it was Gray Maynard. Look at that guy's face. His face is all fucked up. Look at my face. I won that fight. And then every fight after that, his face is completely fucked up. You can't make that argument. But and you don't want to call them like delusional, but there's always a way for the Diaz brothers when they lose fights, and a lot of them are super close, to be like, man, the judge is fucked up, man. He's just hugging me the whole time. He's just holding me down. Like, this isn't a fight. Like, he didn't really fight me. He played the game. And that's one thing I think is really...
Did he say he won? I mean, he didn't say he won, did he? Did he say...
No, but I mean, so there's like winning the fight and there's like the moral victory, right? And I think a lot of times they can find a way to have won the moral victory where it's like, yeah, the guy might have hugged me the whole round and won the rounds, but like I won the fight because I hurt him more, or he's bloodier than me, which isn't the case anymore. But I think they're really good at changing the narrative of a story and to have people buy into it, right? Because a lot of times, whatever they're saying, there's some truth to it. There's some truth. Like, he hurt Leon Edwards worse than he got hurt that entire fight, which is hard to when you look at fucking Nate and his face is just bleeding. And I think what is also kind of disappointing in people not getting Leon enough love in this fight is like he was also kind of a badass in this fight. Like, not only did he just beat the shit out of Nate, that was the best part. The best part is in round 3 when his face is just fucked. Like, he is bleeding all over, and I think he puts his double hands up like, you ain't got nothing on me. And then Leon, like you would expect, because what the lead up to this, like, this is a nice guy. This is a guy who came up from a really troubled past, gangbanging past, and has found MMA and has changed his life around. And for all intents and purposes, he just seems like a nice, solid.
Oh no, Mark froze.
Puts his hands up and says, like, I'm still here. And he tries to give him like a fist bump, like, yeah, I got you, dog. And Nate slaps his hand, this is like the two personalities coming together and making it kind of fun. Like, that's such a Nate thing to do. Like, don't slap my hand. I'm not giving you any fucking credit.
We're not friends right now.
But then no one gives credit. Leon Edwards just give him the double finger. Like, well, fuck you then. Like, let's go. I'm beating the shit out of you.
Yeah, man. Every time like Nate would do his posturing, so would Leon. He would put his hands down, kind of turn his back to him, like, I can do this too. I can bullshit with you.
Honestly, I felt bad. So I think Leon really and honestly, I like how Leon gave Nate all the credit in the world when it was over.
Yeah.
And then apparently Nate talked to him because Leon said, Nate told me after the fight, quote, don't let these motherfuckers tell you ain't shit. Name your price or they will name it for you. So Nate's out here trying to give real advice to these people and he said it earlier this week when Francis Ngannou, where Stefan, remember we were shitting on Francis Ngannou last week for his stupid ass quote about what are we doing wrong? Where Nate said, it's not what are we doing wrong. I know what I'm doing. You gotta go, what is Francis Ngannou doing wrong? You go out there and you name your price. And not everybody can do that. Like, Nate's got a following. But the man knows his worth. And, like, yeah, literally, like, the guy has the attitude of, like, if we fight until, like, there was the joke that said, like, this week, today, that someone said they should have Tony versus Nate, 10 rounds. And I'm like, that won't be enough. Let them just, they want to fight until the other guy's done. That's the end of the fight.
Hey, someone already called out Nate Diaz, and multiple people did, but the first one was Damian Maia. Damian Maia wants that Nate Diaz action.
Oh, yeah. In literally the classiest way. Because Nate spoke very highly of him, too.
Well,
God bless him.
But I'll let you know this. If Damian Maia fights Nate Diaz, we're not going to have to worry about Nate Diaz bleeding in that fight.
You know what? Let's just do that in, like, submission on the ground. Stefan,
Yeah, they
go
might
ahead.
slap on some geese and get these guys to grapple.
So where I really wanted to come in here on this is about to go on a slight little soapbox. I hear what you're saying, Bob, but honestly, I reject the narrative of, and I know Nate Diaz will get his press. That's a lot of clown casuals to me. The people who will only focus on Nate are the clown casuals who are late to the game. Nate and Nick, they had a lot of detractors. We've been there with them for a while. It took a long time for people to come around on them. But what ultimately the reason people came around on them and why they're such stars they are now is because the thing that ultimately wins out and the thing that people always value is authenticity. And I've been really hard on Leon Edwards, picking him in this fight and then going all in on he's my lock. There's absolutely no chance Nate's going to win. And all that posturing was just to be like, okay, I'm kind of trying to flip it. And, Mark, you brought it up a little bit, watching some of the countdown stuff, watching some of the embeddeds. I learned a lot more about Leon than I ever knew about him. The dude is real. Like, he got into his beef with Jorge. Jorge, he's got a lot of street cred, but let's be honest, Jorge's putting on a show, right? There's a realness to him, but a lot of it is just loud volume for the show and everything. And that's where Leon beefed with Jorge is, because Leon, he's got his thing, but he's a real dude. And so I'm hoping that's in the long game, that's what's going to happen here, is people are going to start realizing that about Leon.
Steph, I think you're totally right. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but, like, my worry, and it's not that I'm like, this isn't me saying, I mean, obviously I'm telling you how much I felt bad for Leon. The fucking welterweight champion is one of the ones being like, oh, I mean, I know it's Leon. I know Kamaru wants to get paid, but there's, like, all these fighters doing it too. That's what I don't think Leon Edwards isn't getting his flowers for, to put it in those terms. It sucks. Not from his own people, from his own community, from the MMA community. That's what sucks.
But now that I'm on the Leon train, you know what? It's fine. I'll enjoy, me on Leon versus the world. It'll be all the more satisfying when he does get there for me.
The man deserves a title shot.
Yeah.
He deserves a title shot. It's not even a question.
I'm in his corner now. I'm in his corner all the way.
I've been picking this motherfucker for years, and I think
the thing, yeah. What's most upsetting, Bob, is all these people saying that he doesn't deserve it, and is like, he has 9 straight wins. What the fuck do you mean he doesn't deserve it? Like, okay, he had a little slip up. He got hurt in this fight, but he got the W, and that's what fucking matters. And when you go 6 years undefeated, 9 fights at welterweight, it's just like, and Jorge Masvidal earned it?
Look,
it's just like, come on.
I mean, I know Kamaru's posturing for a paycheck, I'm sure, too, and he's trying to get Colby and they're doing the Colby fight and blah, blah, blah. But these are the names this man beat, okay? Nate Diaz, which I'm sure a bunch of people are going to be like, oh, he beat a lightweight. Okay, whatever. We're all sucking this dude's dick, all right? He's the goddamn...
No, Bob. We all saw Nate Diaz having traps all of a sudden at the weigh-ins. This was the
guy's
biggest
going
Nate
back
Diaz
to
I'd ever
55?
fucking
Forget about it.
Bilal Muhammad, he won that. That wasn't even close. I mean, the no con is my ass. Rafael Dos Anjos, Gunnar Nelson, Donald Cerrone, Peter Sabata, Brian Barberina, Vicente Luque, Albert Tumanov, Dominic Waters, who wasn't bad. He beat him too. He lost to Kamaru Usman. What do you want from the man? Like, who is this welterweight he needs to beat to make it? Do you want him to fight Colby? Does he fight Colby? Then do that. Like, book him a fight then. And yeah, he deserves a title shot. I don't think he needs to sit and wait for 7 months. If they want to give him a fight against Mike, what do you think about him fighting Let me look at 185. What's Gilbert Burns up to? What's Wonderboy
70,
Thompson?
right?
Well,
Honestly,
that's the
170.
crazy thing.
Wonderboy Thompson, right?
How is
That's the fight.
Gilbert Burns ranked ahead of Leon Edwards? The last time we saw Gilbert Burns, he was getting mollywopped by Usman.
Well, that's the only person he lost to, though, since then, has he? That might be why, in fairness. He didn't lose for a while either.
If they're not going to give him the belt, that's a really good fight right there. Gilbert versus Leon. That's a really
I think
good
it should
fight.
be. I think it should be Wonderboy. I think it's Wonderboy versus Leon for the title shot.
We just can't seem to get into the title picture. So yeah,
I mean, we have.
I think the
Go ahead,
problem,
Mark.
Bob, is like you read all those names, and I was like, they're kind of he's kind of missing some big names. Like there's no
Well, these are the-
Burns,
these
there's
are the
no
rankings right
Wonderboy, Masvidal,
Well, here are the
or
rankings.
Covington.
Covington. This is from one down. Covington still won. Huh? Who did he beat? Does he have one win?
beat Tyron Woodley
Okay, fine.
almost a year ago.
Covington, Burns, Edwards, Thompson, Luque, Chiesa, then Moss. How is Masvidal 7? Jesus Christ. Masvidal, Magny, Maya, Jeff Neal. Some of these guys need to go, man. Including my dude Maya from this top 10. I think he needs to fight Wonderboy or Burns, and you give him a title shot.
Yeah.
If you're not going to give it to him right now. Though, Wonderboy and him, you're killing a contender on some level there, I guess, because Burns isn't getting another shot. In this scenario, Covington doesn't beat Usman in this scenario I've created. Assuming that fight even gets booked. I think Covington's still trying to get paid like anybody cares about him. Mike, Nate Diaz. Is Jorge Masvidal next? Let's just put it right out there. Is Jorge Masvidal next? Are we waiting to see what happens next month?
I don't think Jorge is going to be next. I think it's going to be Conor McGregor.
Is this matter if Conor wins or loses?
I think whether Conor wins or loses or not, between those two fights, the fight that everyone wants to see more between the two, it is the rubber match between those two. As we talked about ad nauseum, Masvidal has lost a lot of his shine and luster since about a year ago. Losing to Usman twice will do that, in addition to all of his extracurriculars over the last year as well. So, me personally, I think it'll be McGregor if you were to give me a choice between the two. That would be the one. At this point, Nate Diaz is looking for fights that excite him. I'm sure Masvidal would excite him because that fight wasn't going his way before it was stopped through a doctor stoppage. But, I think the second Conor fight, I personally thought that it was very close. Nate could have easily have been awarded that decision. In my opinion,
one of the judges gave it a draw, right? Wasn't it a majority decision? I think Conor took 2 or 3.
I think it was unanimous, but some of the rounds were pretty close.
And that is also the highest selling pay-per-view besides Conor versus Khabib. I think it's going to be hard for them, Mark, to not pull the trigger on that fight when it's the biggest pay-per-view fight they can put together money-wise now that Khabib's retired, right? Like, we got to make that happen one more time, wouldn't you say? Just from a money point of view?
I mean, I don't disagree with the logic, but like when you say like it's the biggest fight the UFC could do, so of course they'll do it. I'm thinking like, well, they didn't do John Jones and Francis Ngannou, so it's not like everything's set in stone because these guys are going to want a lot of money.
Here's the thing.
Let's get one thing close. Let's get one thing clear though, Mark. These dudes sell numbers, all right? Unlike Mr. Jones.
No, this is the difference. Stefan said it last week.
Little baby 700K.
This is the difference. Stefan said it last week. They're effectively Nate and Conor can be partners in this. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Francis folded quickly.
It's true.
And took a Derek. And I get it. You just became champion. Nate will take a year and a half off. Nate said he took the whole time off because of COVID. He says he wanted the crowd. That's why he's been gone this whole time. Nate and Conor have done it before. Well, they will play the UFC together inadvertently, which is weird. Because I don't get the impression they particularly like each other, but I think
it's how they get shit done.
I think they
right?
respect each other. No two people understand the game here, for lack of a better term, more than Conor and Nate in terms of getting paid by the UFC. Nobody understands it better than those two. They get it better than anybody, so they can do it for each other.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. I think either fight would be just as a fan, not looking at it as a business or who's going to sell more or what have you. I think just as a fan of Nate Diaz, the Jorge fight makes sense because Jorge just got blasted you know, and even though Nate just lost, he did not lose an ounce of credibility. If anything, he's gained more. And then the Conor fight is just, it's always there, you know, and they talked about for years, like that third fight is going to happen at some point. It's too big not to happen.
If Conor loses, I think Conor loses, they definitely pull the trigger. It's time.
Yeah, because that could be the catalyst, because it also matters, like, what does Conor want ultimately? If he goes in there and beats Dustin, he obviously can get a title shot if he wants. And if his ambitions is to hold a belt again, then maybe that's what he does. But if it is just to make cash money, he knows Nate is going to be that big fight they can do. I mean, look, honestly, they can fight a third fight, and unless even if it is a blowout, even if Conor goes out there and just smokes Nate, or Nate beats Conor super quick, they can do a fourth fight easily, because you don't really need the credibility of like, oh, each of these fights were close, we got to cancel fees. Like, no, these two guys are fun fighters that make it interesting and fun. We'll watch it 4, 5, 6 times, you know? I mean, and that's not a big, I mean, someone who watches K1, it's like these dudes have fought each other like 10 times. Yeah,
like,
who cares?
I mean,
like,
Stefan, I saw Jake Shields there. Like, Jake Shields has got a laptop to steal, baby. Jake Shields has a new laptop. We can book that fight again, right? No
like
problem.
The pro wrestling chant goes, Bob. Fight forever. Just fight forever. There you go.
Yeah, fuck it. Let's just set him out there. Damian Maia, Bilal Muhammad. I really don't care about what happened in this fight, to be honest, because nothing interesting did. Maia couldn't get a single leg takedown. Damian Maia said he wanted one more. The UFC, Dana White said he's pretty much done, quite frankly. Damian's call out is to Nate Diaz is maybe the nicest call out I've ever heard, where he said, I saw your quote on the press conference, and I think you're great too. You're a great, it's like a goddamn like love note. Yeah. You're a great fighter who also represents jiu-jitsu, and you're real. I respect that. Regardless of last night, I know I still have one fight left in me, and it's no secret that I feel like UFC is my home where I can finish my career. Now, I have no idea if they will give me another fight, but if they do, I'd be honored to do my last MMA bout with you. Someone who always comes to fight, who represents BJJ, and whom I respect. First off, I don't think they're booking this fight.
That is so classy.
I just want to say something about Damian Maia here. And I know it's kind of a joke about how much I love Damian Maia. And quite frankly, one of Mike's early MMA memories is me selling Damian Maia as just new Royce Gracie. And then Damian Maia got knocked out in 9 seconds by Nate Marquardt. And then we almost lost Mike entirely from MMA. God bless Kimbo Slice for keeping him around. If you know who's got the record for which Brazilian has the most wins in UFC history?
Is it Damian Maia?
It's Damian Maia. Damian Maia has got the second most wins in UFC history, period. Damian Maia, you're not going to sit and look at this man and say, oh, he left a lot on the table. Or like he didn't, like he got 2 title shots in 2 different weight classes. And they were well-deserved, both of them. And sure, he didn't pull it off, but he was a goddamn gentleman. Nobody has anything bad to say about him. There was that whole stretch where he won like 5 straight fights, landing a combined 12 strikes just by strangling motherfuckers at 170 pounds. This sport needs more people like Damian Maia. And if that was the last one, and look, Damian Maia is 43 goddamn years old.
Jesus.
Like, you don't realize how many UFC fights he has. He showed up in the UFC at 6-0. He is 28-11. Not a bad record, quite frankly, overall. Just saying. The sport will miss him if he's done, and if him and Nate if they gave Nate that fight, I'm sure they're not going to pay Nate what he wants to do that. But when Damian Maia puts out his Jiu-Jitsu for MMA YouTube series, I hope he invites Nate Diaz to be on a couple episodes. That's all I'm saying. Because I love Damian Maia. He's one of my guys. Yeah.
I mean, the problem is like, that is a sweet call out, and it would, in a just world, they would do that fight. It's just like, Nate's way too big of a star to do that. And then you start thinking like, okay, well, like, what's realistic...
What's Nick up to?
Well, I mean, it's mostly just like, what's a realistic fight for Damian Maia's last fight where he could be competitive? Because I mean, this fight, we knew like this wasn't going to be a competitive fight. His competitor is too young and too much in his prime for us to be a competitive fight. So like, what can you make that would honor the note he just sent to Nate? You know, like, who's on the roster that would make sense? And there's like nobody. Like, I can't. I was like, can we dig up Jacare and they do 185 and just grapple each other?
You know
like,
what, man?
What would make sense?
His win over Ben Askren, I almost wish that was the last one, just because it was such a beautiful. It was great to see. it was him and Ben. I know Ben wasn't happy with how that went, but it was nice to see, we saw grappling. It was a straight up grappling match between those two guys.
We saw two guys using their strength against each other to see who came out on top, and that's great. And I just can't think of anyone else that really fits that mold.
I mean, I love Damian Maia, and Mike was talking about it when we were watching the Nate fight on this weekend, where Mike said there's so few guys I just unabashedly root for in this sport. And Nate's one of them. Nate's my favorite fighter, period. But Damian Maia is one of those guys. And
you're right, Bobby. It should be Nick. But barring that, I think we all know what the only solution is, and that's for him to box Jake Paul.
I love that answer.
Oh, Jake Paul said he wants to box Nate. And I'm like, okay, all right. Sure, whatever, buddy.
I was thinking if this fight didn't go well for Nate at the end, he'd be like, well, fuck this shit and fight Jake Paul, and you guys can all suck it.
Let me tell you what's never going to happen. They're never letting Nate out of this contract. Okay, Nate and Nick are never. The UFC is not stupid. Yeah. Everybody likes. I like when people when Nate fights. Every time he does, they bring up Dana White's quote where he says Nate Diaz isn't a needle mover. It's adorable.
Yeah, that's really bit him in the ass for the last 10 years.
Yeah, it's bit him in the ass. He's printing money. All right, we got to pick up the pace. We're almost an hour into this thing. The opening fight was Paul Craig versus Jamal Hill. What was his name? I apologize, I messed it up.
It was like Jamal Hill. There's an extra,
like an extra A and
extra vowel in there.
Okay, so Paul Craig broke this dude's arm, and the referee didn't see it.
Dislocated, Bobby.
Yeah, dislocated. Sorry,
dislocated.
And then he was in a triangle choke, and his arm was flapping around because he had lost control on that half of his arm. That referee fucked up this fight. I just put it in our group chat how Paul Craig and Hill went to the club after. And apparently Paul Craig got Jamal drunk. Got him. They got turned up.
I want to say, and Steph probably saw this too. To the lead up, like these guys had a standoff on like those poster signings, and it looked legit. Like there wasn't cam. Like those two got face to face, and they were talking shit to. And it's like, and they had to get people around. Like, okay, separate these guys. But as the only guy who picked Paul Craig, and I've said many times how I just love this dude's style. You have to give this. Just take your hat off because like. I remember when Big Nog used to pull guard on people in 2001, and that was considered stupid and silly. Like, who pulls guard? Like, no. This is 2021, and this dude is like grappling. Like, striking's not going well. Pulling guard, baby, and won the fight after pulling guard. I mean, and most of that, I think Jamal Hill made an error there. He should have immediately stood up, especially with all the arm bars he was already trying immediately. But I've been fascinated with this dude's bottom game. You don't see a lot of people at high level MMA that are able to do the things he's doing off his back because a lot of times they get on their back and they get punched once and it's like, oh, that I don't know what's going on anymore. And this guy gets it done.
You don't expect random Scottish guy to be the one pulling guard either. That's the thing too.
Yeah.
By the way, in the image, by the way, of them dance, them in the club, I especially like how they are dancing and nobody else is dancing.
Oh, they're drunk dancing. They're making a scene.
Stephon, you wanted to chime in?
This probably wasn't even any music playing when they were there. But two little tangents that I just wanted to chime in that not really to do with this fight. I don't think much more needs to be said. You can't mention pulling guard without me bringing up the immortal Jake Shields. Forever that's the first thing I always think of is sadly asking his cornerman, should I pull guard now? And
should have.
But I will say you gave the ref got some flack for not ending the fight, but another ref this weekend in a boxing card, not any particularly known boxers, he ended up decided to steal. He had a hold my beer moment because apparently the guy got dropped from a liver punch. So his cornerman, who is his father, threw in the towel. The ref said, nah, I don't accept throwing it in the towel. So what happened was that fighter who got dropped from the liver punch, well, he ate punches for another round and then got finished later. So he's like, you're not done getting your ass whooped. So
he's like, I had a bet ref. This goes to the fifth, and it's going to the fifth, baby.
I laid some money down. Your son's got to make it another round, gentlemen.
Paul Craig is ranked like 14. Hill was 15, so... Paul Craig, you think he wins a lot of fights because you see all these triangles, but he's losing all those fights in between the triangles.
Yeah,
I do like that Paul Craig is like, I'm getting my fucking triangle in one way or another. I'm getting my shit in, boys. All right?
I'll say this for Paul Craig. I need the Ross Pearson thing. I need subtitles for this man. His post-fight, I didn't understand a word of what he said, and neither did Phoenix, Arizona. So they were just cheering his nonsense. But I need subtitles on that, man.
Mike, this is why we don't hire local referees, man. You got to get... Just because the guy's an Arizona referee doesn't mean he needs to be on the UFC card. That was terrible.
I would agree with that. That arm was moving as if it had no bone in it. That alone should have been the reason why you stopped the fight.
We thought he was asleep and his arm was just flopping for a moment. We're like, no, he's just lost control of his arm.
I thought he was like tapping and had like, been put to sleep, but no. Just nothing connecting that arm anymore.
Because you got up to get a beer, and I'm just watching, and then you came back. I'm like, hey, what had happened really was this dude's arm was dislocated. Good for them putting their shit aside. I love MMA, man. Only in this sport would you break a motherfucker or you dislocate a motherfucker's arm, then you go to the club together afterwards. It's great. There was a bunch of moments on this card where like, man, I love this sport.
I mean,
from the prelims,
Paul Craig has no reason to have any animosity after that. It's like, I broke your arm and tapped you out. Like, why do I need to be angry anymore?
Drew Dober, Brad Riddell, just a crackerjack of a fight. 3 rounds of just two dudes beating the shit out of each other. I didn't know who won. When it was over, they gave it to Brad Riddell. Both him and Izzy dedicated their wins to their teammate, who I feel bad. I missed the guy. I don't have the guy's name up right now. But I remember reading the story how their teammate had been killed. It was a really fucked up story. It's really, you really see that.
It's Foul Vake.
Yeah.
He got sucker punched in the back of the head, fell down. I was reading into it. It's a thing that people advise you not to get in street fights, and this is why. It's not the punch that kills you, but if you knock a guy out and they hit their head on the pavement and die from the wounds, that becomes manslaughter at minimum at that point. And that's a case of what happened. Got sucker punched in the back of the head, hit the pavement, died in the hospital from his brain damage a day later. Very just terrible story. Kid was 26 years old.
Yeah, it's a terrible story.
Really terrible story.
That team, you really get the impression the city kickboxing guys are very close. And it's nice to see just, them showing respect for their fallen comrade. Brad Quake Riddell. Every time I see this dude's nickname, I want to make a Marvel reference. And then you look into why he has his nickname, and it's because like an earthquake devastated his city. Like that's why. And you're like, okay, well I can't say anything about this then. All right, that's there. That happened to this guy.
That's a weird nickname to take. You massacred my loved ones at home. I'm gonna adopt this name now.
Yeah, apparently I toppled the building he was working in or something, the earthquake too. I don't know. And then finally, Lauren Murphy doing Lone Murphy, Thorne Murphy things, beating Joanne Calderwood. I'm just gonna ask this, Mike. Will the betting line for betting line for Lauren Murphy versus Valentina Shevchenko, will Valentina Shevchenko be a greater or less than minus 1,200 favorite?
Yes. At
greater
least
or less? You think it's gonna be worse than that, you think?
I think it'll be worse than that. All right. We are in demolition season with Valentina, okay? And I expect nothing less.
Valentina, last time she was that high was against Jessica I, where she opened at minus 1250. Oh, it got to minus 1700. Jesus. Okay. She opened her last fight, against Jennifer Maia, she opened at minus 750, ended at minus 1,000. Good Lord, man. What are we...
Guys,
someone throw money in a minute. Let's throw money in a minute.
We're gonna call your buddy Sal. We're gonna empty our bank accounts, and then we're gonna take our $60 in winnings and have a nice dinner.
That's gonna be. It's gonna be like a nice high interest savings account.
We're gonna take all our money we have to our name, and then take those winnings and go get Espetis for dinner.
You bringing up Sal just caused me to have a little pain in my heart, because with an extra 50 seconds in that Nate Diaz fight, me and Bobby are $250 richer. Because
I told you guys what was going to happen in that fight. That was just to tickle you a little bit to keep it interesting, but I told you the outcome.
Well, in fairness, given another 50 seconds, man, that's why I was standing. I'm like, God damn, this might happen. That's why when Moreno won, Mike was just like, motherfucker. Because we had a parlay of Nate and Moreno. And
I know, guys. A lot of fights would end differently if you changed the rules for what they are fought under. A lot of fights
Well,
would
yeah.
then be different. That is how things
we're
work.
We're just asking for no time limits. That's all me and Mike are asking for. It's
You're
a
asking
reasonable
for the
thing.
fight to continue until the guy you picked wins, however long that may take.
You,
I'm just
Mike,
asking
and
for some
Hoist
money.
Gracie.
I'm trying to get paid.
All right, we got to pick up the pace here. News that happened this week. Mentioned already, Douglas Lima lost his welterweight title in Bellator. Not great for the best fighter in that company, not named Pitbull. Losing to a 26-0 Ukrainian, but the guy's 26-0, so maybe it was a snoozer though. Just taken down at will. And
I think Mark would enjoy it. Mark likes wrestling. I think Mark would enjoy that dominant action.
Clarissa Shields made her MMA debut. It did not go well for 2 rounds. Let me tell you, she went to the ground, and I'm gonna give Clarissa some credit here. She survived, but those first 2 rounds, woo, not great.
I'm gonna say this: I saw that finish. It could have kept going. She wasn't really landing anything.
But anybody wanted Kayla Harrison versus Clarissa Shields? We need to pump those brakes a little bit, folks. Pump those brakes, because Kayla would maul her like a bear. Let's get into it. We're actually going to pick a PFL fight, which I don't know if we've ever done that before.
I don't think so. Why would we?
Well, here we go.
Did we not pick a Pettis fight or something? Or did we just mention it?
We might just mention it. We're
mention it because we never know who the other person is, so it's like, what?
Well, this time we do.
So
let me tell you.
So why are we doing it this time? Whatever.
Okay,
So you gotta break traditions.
Yeah, we gotta break traditions. Let me tell you what's happening on this PFL card. First of all, Tom Lawler is fighting, and I'm just happy that Tom Lawler is allowed to fight again. Makes me happy to see that he's can actively fight. Tom Lawler is on this card. Antonio Carlos Jr. is taking on Vinny Magalhães.
Making me hungry, Bobby.
That's right. Vinny Magalhães, the last M1, or he was the former M1 light heavyweight champion. Those early listeners to the podcast might know that when Vinny put the belt on eBay, we were the leading bid for that championship title many times until they got pulled. Okay? We really went for it. My little brother was all in. He's like, we get a real belt? Like a real one. And I'm like, well, yeah, but Russian. He's like, I don't care. It's real. My brother was ready to spend $2,000 on this belt. Let me tell you. Okay. Cesar Ferreira, the former star protege of Vitor Belfort, taking on Mark's favorite fighter, not named Sam Cecilia. Chris Camozzi is on this card, folks. Camozzi.
Not only have ever said I like Chris Camozzi, he lives adjacent to where we are, but that's about as far as it goes. He has a heart grenade tattoo. These are the big selling points of Chris Camozzi's career. Not to diminish the guy. I mean,
you know what's fucked up? If Cesar Ferreira comes out and he's just like, oh man, I'm hurt. I can't fight. We got a replacement opponent. In comes Jacare with his one fucking arm, and he still beats Chris Camozzi.
Like we said earlier, Bobby, fight forever. Chris Camozzi versus Jacare, eternal rivals.
All right, we're picking Rory McDonald and Gleison Tebow. Gleison Tebow, this is his first fight at 170 pounds since UFC, let me get the number right, folks, 65, where he lost to a young Nate Diaz in 2006. Gleison is far too short to be fighting at this weight class. Rory McDonald, on the other hand, in the PFL, coming off his first PFL win. First PFL fight was a win over Curtis Millender, a fellow former UFC fighter, if I'm not mistaken. Bouncing back from his loss to Douglas Lima in Bellator. I don't see betting odds for this one. I'm not sure it would matter when I framed this fight the way I did. Oh, wait, I do see betting odds. They just showed up. Rory is minus 600 to plus 400 for Gleison Tebow. Does anybody pick it against the Waterboy?
No.
Mike?
Yep, because y'all a bunch of cowards. Why are we even picking these UFC washouts if we're all just going to pick the UFC washout?
I'm trying to goose our records.
Are you picking Tebow? Because I took a bath last week, so I would like some people to make some dumb picks.
Stefan,
are you going to honor my modifier yet, Mike?
No.
Am I winning now?
Yeah, you're in first now.
Am I ahead of you or tied?
No, you're ahead.
What else did you fuck up?
I went 2-4 last week. It wasn't great.
What did I pick? 2 and
You
4.
picked better than me.
Oh, did you not pick? You didn't pick Lauren Murphy?
No.
Oh, you
JoJo.
fool. Oh, you fool. You fool. Okay.
Oh, don't act like we were
okay.
sure Lauren Murphy was a sure thing.
No, it wasn't. It was a split decision too, I think.
There was nothing sure about that.
Look,
one.
I'm just going to keep talking about PFL until you guys watch PFL, because I like watching PFL. I
on
enjoy it.
Thursday nights, man.
It's on Thursdays.
That's a
What are you
weird-
watching
that's
on
a weird
Thursday?
night.
What are you watching on Thursday nights?
It
You
is
watching
on
Impact?
ESPN Plus too, right?
Are you
Probably
watching
low-key
Impact?
Sometimes. I watch a
Um,
lot of stuff on the internet. Yeah.
okay. We're all picking Rory. I'm assuming Stefan didn't
Wait,
change
hold
his
on.
mind there.
Stefan said he wanted to put his foot in the bear trap. Let him do it.
Yeah.
Are you putting your foot in the bear trap, Stefan?
Nah, I saw a picture of him. He wasn't as juiced as I was hoping. I wanted to see a real vascular Gleason, but he looks like an old man.
That man took that 2-year EPO suspension. By the way, there's a little since we're paying for Fight Pass or did, there's a little.
Did you see
20
the little
minutes
special thing on TJ?
That's exactly what I watched.
Yeah, the man. Let me tell you, accountability is not in this man's vocabulary.
Well, he's just like, I fucked. He's really saying I only did it this one fight, which I have a really hard time believing. I'm sorry. Also, I forgot how bad he looked at 125 pounds. That weight, that Stefan, you saw those fucking like.
He was skeletal.
It
was
was
skeletal.
terrible.
Yeah.
No, some James Irvin.
It was
shit.
it was like James Irvin at middleweight, was it that he went down to? And
Yeah.
yeah,
That was gross. Those Chronicle things. By the way, when they name it Chronicle, Steph, I'm not sure if you have the same thing I were like, because WWE has their Chronicle too, but it's like an hour and a half long in WWE. The UFC one's 20 minutes. This is real quick.
I just left the stream on. I don't know what's actually
That's not
on
a,
these things.
that's not a chronicle. That's like a bookend.
Yeah, that was an
footnote.
episode of Seinfeld, is what it was. Okay.
What's
we're
Rory's
picking
nickname nowadays?
Isn't it Red King?
All right.
I don't
I
think it
remember
was.
that.
That was too cool. We all thought like, oh, that's a good name. Then he probably switched it to like.
It's Red King. It's Wikipedia says Red King.
By
the way,
his first official fight as Red King is when Robbie chewed up that face.
let me just say this: whoever put in Figgy Smalls as one of Figueiredo's nicknames, God bless you, man. That's a good nickname. I'm going with Figueiredo. The Figgy Smalls for Figueiredo. All right, we're picking 2 fights. I think they're back at the Apex. Korean Zombie, Dan Ige.
Ige.
Yeah, I keep saying it wrong. I say it wrong every fucking time, don't I? Ige. Korean Zombie's last fight is when he lost to Ortega, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Ortega looked the best he ever did, and can I say there was the very beautiful model wife lady of his at the fight. He pulled
that's
a
a
BJ
that's
Penn
a-
at that time.
That's a UFC
she-
fighter.
Is she?
Was it?
That you guys go ahead and Google Tracy Cortez.
All right.
Yes, she's a UFC fighter.
Good for her.
I think.
So wait,
yeah.
so that wasn't his lady?
I mean, it might be his lady.
I mean,
She's also fights in the UFC.
Brian Ortega's a very beautiful man.
Dan Ige bounced back from that loss to Calvin Cater to knock out Gavin Tucker in 22 seconds back in March. As I mentioned, Zombie did Ortega beat his ass for 5 rounds, right? That was Ortega's like striking best performance of his career, probably, right? Like he really showed some improved skill set there. I'm pretty sure we got to pick him here, right? Right, Steph?
It's even -110 for both fighters, double favorite.
I remember you and I were talking how we weren't necessarily sold on Dan. I know you're a Zombie guy. I mean, are you going Zombie here out of loyalty, or are you a little bit, iffy because Zombie's taking some abuse over the years?
Yeah, I'm not wearing the shirt this week, and it isn't just loyalty. I still think Zombie is still a step ahead of them. EA, he's tough guy, solid across the board. Never really showed any finishing prowess, and granted he did, but who did he get it against? I have no idea who that guy that he knocked out was. Zombie, he didn't look great in his last fight, but like we just said, it is on the cusp of contendership. Brian Ortega's finest hour. That's the best Brian Ortega ever lost, and just before that, he was putting it to Yair before Yair got the miracle knockout, right? And Yair is another guy who's knocking on a championship. So though he's coming off of a loss, I don't feel like Zombie's lost it yet. It's just he may be now behind the upper echelon, but to me, Ige is not a true upper echelon guy. Like,
by the way, we're talking about number 4 Zombie versus number 8 Ige. So that's where we're at here. Ige trying to crack that top 5, Zombie trying to hold on to his position. So you got Zombie. Mark?
No time for analysis. Zombie.
Mike?
Sorry, I was muted. I'm going with Zombie.
Okay, well, I'll take Ige. This is just because I feel somebody needs to. It's a pick 'em. Mike, you can catch up to me right here. It all depends on Korean Zombie. All right, co-main event. The 105-year-old Alexei Oleinik, age 43, 75 MMA fights, 59 wins, and 15 losses. Coming off of a fight where he got his ass beat by Chris D'Acau. Before that, he got his ass beat by Derek Lewis. Taking on a 26-year-old UFC heavyweight, Sergey Spivak. Their polar bear. Bounced back from loss to Marcin Tybura to beat Carlos Felipe and Jared Vanderaa. Betting odds for this one, Stefan.
Bob, you pull it up. I had to look up who this guy was, so I closed
No problem.
it for a second.
The polar bear, Sergey Spivak, my dude, the polar bear. Taken is going to be a minus 230 favorite to Alexei Oleinik's plus 190. I'm just going to lead it off. I'm taking the polar bear. Mark?
Sorry, I also was doing some analysis. I'm going to take the old guy. Why not?
Mike?
There's only one true polar bear, and that's Pete Alonso of the Mets. But I'm still going to pick Spivak.
I was going to say
Mike's
Paul
like,
Barnes, but
Mike, you got to plan your moves tactically here. Right?
Also, I will say I miscalculated ingesting my sleeping pill. It's real rough. It's real rough for your boy right now.
Mike, they tell you not to operate any technology and such after you take such a pill. I just will say my only bit of analysis is if you're like Mark and myself and you need to look up Sergey Spivak, whatever you picture a Ukrainian heavyweight to look like, you're correct. That's what this guy looks like. But I got Alexei. He's going to get that choke that he always gets. We talk about pulling guard. This man's about to pull guard.
Referring back to the sleeping aid, which one of you guys picked Oleinik again?
Mark and Stefan.
Me and Steph picking the old man, the old wrestler.
Yeah. I got the young guy who I'm concerned if they look too much at too many of his tattoos, he's going to get kicked out of the UFC. Let me tell you that when I look at this dude. Okay. He's one of those guys. All right. Stuff we like. This is gonna be. I'm just gonna be real quick. I watched Invincible, but the guys all talked about Invincible last week, or not last week, a couple weeks ago. I'll just say there's stuff I liked, stuff I didn't like. Overall, I'm interested to see where we go from here. And I saw they cast a Captain America-like character for the boys, and that made me very happy.
Soldier Boy.
We're going there.
Sam, it is who is that guy from that show I never watched.
What?
Who is it that's playing him? Isn't it the blonde guy from
Supernatural guy? I never watched that show, so I don't have that affinity.
It is being played by Jensen Ackles.
That's the guy.
Yeah, that's a CW show, right? Supernatural?
Yep.
One of those real heartthrob dude got him in there. So, but yeah, Invincible was good. But again, yeah, stuff I like, stuff I didn't like. Overall, good time. Stefan, you got anything this week?
Yeah, I'll try to, keep it not too long since we're going long this episode. Watched a bunch of things. I did check out the Bo Burnham Netflix special that Mark was talking about last week. Was chatting with Mark about it. I'm not super familiar with Bo Burnham, but having guys like Dimitri Martin, Flight of the Conchords, right? I'm into some musical comedy. So I did come around really liking it, but was just really put it on a different level was as someone who's battled really dark depression and really rough levels of anxiety, that Bo Burnham special was triggering as fuck.
Yeah, I'm halfway through it, and I'm like, oh, this is not what I thought I was getting into necessarily.
Yeah, he gets very real in between his segments, but I also love the comedic brilliance of just sharply cutting from them. I will say, Mark in particular, I don't know if it was one of your favorites, but when he's playing his video game, and he's in the room.
For sure.
That I was like crying during that whole thing. I guess I'll cry again. Like that was so good. I really enjoyed that. Loki started up this week, as we do with the Marvel shows. You're not going to go super into it, but I will say this is the best episode 1 of the 3 shows. You know, like I was pretty into Wanda from the start, but in terms of a show, not really knowing what it's going to be about, really drawing me in. Shout out to me and Mark Sky, Eugene Cordero, playing Casey, the guy behind the desk. Enjoying that, and I told Mark I absolutely love and adore the themes, the soundtrack of the show so far. That theremin, that kind of old school like analog sci-fi sound. It's a really good touch. Looking forward to where this goes. And then on the music front, I bought a CD this past week. Who buys CDs anymore? And who honestly even has anything that plays CDs? I have nothing to rip this music from so I can put it on my computer. I need to borrow some type of CD drive. But my favorite K-pop group, Twice, got their 10th mini album. They got their lead single, Alcohol Free. It's a very like mature, mellow bossa nova summer jam song. You picture just sipping a drink, like sitting by the pool, lounging on a lazy day. It is like
a virgin drink, apparently.
Well, they're alcohol free because they don't need to drink alcohol because they're getting drunk off of their feelings for this person. You know, it's a metaphor for love, Mike.
All 9 of them off that one person.
It's called Mike. You watch anime. We like the harem animes, right? Who doesn't love a harem anime? But yeah, enjoying that album. Not too much else to report otherwise. Again, I'm sure I'm missing stuff, but I'll catch up on it next week.
Mark?
I like how Mike's sleepy, but not too sleepy to throw Twice under the bus. I loved it. All 9 of them like that guy. Okay. So right now we're still in the midst of E3. And honestly, I've been watching a lot of the coverage, and there's been a lot of cool looking indie games, but overall it's kind of been a dud. And that's not super surprising. It being pandemic, there's no actual convention. 2020 was kind of a little lackluster. I think honestly in 2020 that's when Sony left, and I think that took a lot of the wind out of its sails. But so far, like, you know, there hasn't been a ton of games that really have gotten me excited. They did show Elder Ring, which is the next Souls game, which actually does look pretty promising if you're into those type of games. And then I really dug Square Enix is doing a Guardians of the Galaxy single player narrative driven game, and I think that game looks really cool. Mike, you had something?
Elden Rings. That's the game that George R.R. Martin is involved with?
Yeah, he got tired of writing Game of Thrones or not writing it, so he's like, let me write this game instead. But yeah,
that game is the reason why I'll never get to finish A Song of Ice and Fire, right?
Yeah, he loves being distracted by other projects.
Yeah, I mean, you can blame the game if you want, but that is the man being like, I can't. There's too much hype around Game of Thrones now because the HBO show did so badly with the ending. I think he's just scared. Sure, you want to blame that game? I don't give a shit. But it looked all right, and I think Guardians looks really cool. They obviously took a different direction from the movies because they didn't want to just have a Chris Pratt up there. But it looks cool. It looks fun. And then tomorrow is Nintendo is doing their direct, so very likely they'll show Breath of the Wild 2 and some other stuff. So it's not quite over, but so far it's been a little lacking, which has been disappointing. And then next week there's a couple games I'm actually excited to play. Other than that, I have continued to play Virtual Fighter 5. There was one day last week where I had a couple bad matches, and I was like, you know what? This game might have just caught up to me. The people online are just too good, but then I just smashed it over the weekend, so I'm having fun again. So that's all I got this week.
Mike, just like curiosity, what type of sleeping pill are we talking about here?
I doubled up on the melatonin. That was a mistake.
Oh, how many milligrams are we talking about here, buddy?
I don't know. Let's check.
This is what Mike's like.
This is riveting podcast material right here, brother.
Each one is 5, so I took 10.
All right, right on. Mike, now that you're half asleep, why don't you sing the praises?
No. I will not be doing that this week. My mind is fighting just to stay awake right now. I need to be lucid. I need to be snapping when I give my soliloquy of In the Heights. So this week, I will put a pin in it. We'll leave that for next week, right? Because you see, this is what we do, Bobby. This is why we're different. Everyone is talking about In the Heights right now. We like week-old news. That's how we do.
Mike, for next week's when you post the video of the stuff we like, just post a bootleg copy of In the Heights on YouTube and call it a day.
I mean, I could just go to the Heights and take some video. And, just
Mike just goes to a corner store. This is a bodega.
I didn't watch the Star Wars. I lived the Star Wars.
I'll put a nice 5-minute video of the dope fiend just like leaning out on a sidewalk. We got a lot of those in the Heights now, actually. One thing I will actually co-sign on stuff we like is something that Mark did a few weeks ago. I have ran through The Conjuring 1 and 2, and I am about a quarter of the way through the third movie that just came out about a month ago. The Conjuring, The Devil made me do it. Really enjoy the series. It's almost like full-length feature episodic movies where it's weird that the two protagonists, they're not going to die because it's kind of based on a true story, and you're going to get Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga in each of the movies. Really enjoyed them. In case you guys don't remember, for when Mark talked about it, it's basically a married couple that go and exorcise demons out of people, and it's based on true accounts. Take that for what you will, grain of salt. Yeah, I know. I saw that face, Bobby.
By the way, I do like you didn't want to talk about In the Heights, but we're just getting deep into The Conjuring now. So yeah, no problem, Mike. Go ahead.
That was about it. I'm done.
No, he had like 5 more minutes on The Conjuring at least.
When I say I'm done, I mean when you interrupted, I literally forgot everything I was about to say.
I'm sorry.
The Conjuring, 1, 2, and whatever the third one's called. I think I said it earlier.
The devil made me do it. Mike just can't conjure up to finish his sentence. Bobby, let's move on.
Yeah, all right, folks. That's it for this week. Yeah. We really like the pay-per-view, obviously. We spent an hour talking about it. So we'll see where we go from here. We'll see if the Korean Zombie can stave off Ige, or we see if we got ourselves another contender at 145 pounds. These guys, Stefan and Mark, are going to really learn who the fuck the polar bear is this weekend. Let me tell you that. When he goes out there and mauls Alexei Olenek.
Or
he's going to maul him all the way into guard. He's going to maul him all the way into an Ezekiel choke is what's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm worried about that myself. We'll talk about that next week. We'll preview the Cyril Gane versus Alexander Volkov card. We will? Yeah, I guess we will. Cyril Gane, Alexander Volkov fight. Until then, I was Dr. Law. That was Kid Presentable. That was DJ Mark. And that was the very sleepy Lavender Gooms. Thank you all so much for listening to our podcast. And don't forget to get that weed whacker if it exists. Peace out.
See ya.
Alabanza.